Hello everyone and welcome back to JB's Total Gaming, where today we are checking out Elite Dangerous. Sorry I haven't done videos in a while. Been really busy with work, and what little bit of free time I've had, I've been checking out Elite Dangerous. It is a game I've been enjoying quite a bit so far. A space game where you fly around, you can do combat, you can sell, you can trade, you can explore, you can mine, you can do all different kinds of stuff like that. But it is a game with a high learning curve, and while the tutorials are helpful, they don't tell you everything. And also, well, while you know, there's a lot of videos out there. They're done by expert perspectives, and as a noob, I'm doing a video for noobs to try to check out the game and hopefully tell you guys the things that I wish I knew starting out, because I think that can be pretty darn important. So we're going to check out first what I'm doing right now, Super Cruise, jumping from systems. We're going to check out some combat, and then we're eventually going to check out, you know, how to outfit your ship and things like that, because I feel like until you kind of understand what's going on with the game, learning how to outfit your ship really isn't going to help. So hopefully you guys find this information useful. If you're interested, check out the game. It is a $30 game for the base game. You can get the full game with the expansion that allows you to like land on planets and things like that, and some other bonuses. I haven't checked that out. This is just, we're going to talk about the base game and hopefully give you guys some hints and tips to help you get started if you're interested in the game, give you an idea of what the game is like, and if you're interested in checking it out, some of the things you might want to know. One thing you do want to bear in mind is that there's a lot of downtime in this game. This game doesn't have a huge story. There is a lot of traveling. When we check out the galaxy map, we're gonna you can just go out and out, and it's crazy. There's so many systems, so many things, and there's a lot of traveling and potential downtime, and not an overarching story to the game. That being said, though, it is emergent gameplay. You get to do what you want, but in order to do what you want, you kind of need to know what you're doing, and that's what this video is for. So let's get around to traveling around the system. Alright, now let's talk real quick about the frame shift drive, which is basically kind of like hyperspace in this game. There are two different versions of it. So I have two missions in the NAC app system. So I'm going to go ahead into here, and I'm going to go into the galaxy map. Now if you go into the system map, this can be really useful. It's going to give you information about what you've uncovered in the system so far, or what's already uncovered just available to you, to show available planets, different places in the system. So like for example, I go to this place, I can check out what's available there, so it's nice. I can see, you know, if I'll be able to refuel and things like that when I'm in the system, which is real nice. But actually what I'm interested in here, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of great information here. We're not going to go into it in great detail, though. We're actually going to go into the galaxy map instead. So when we go to the galaxy map, I've already done this, but at any point I can select, I can move around. There's lots of different ways to maneuver this and select different places, but this is the system I want to go to. So I found it, I hit select, and then I can clear the route or set the route up. And then there are parameters at which you can try to do the fastest route or the most economical route or whatever. And it is nice too because I have missions there. This is the little mission marker telling me, so it's easy to find. I can scroll out and easily find where my missions are. So there we go. So I'm all set to go ahead and jump there. We're going to do the first of the two types of jump, and this is the system-to-system jump, which is the easiest. Now first of all, before you jump from system to system, you have to, or use Super Cruise, you have to meet the checklist. So in the bottom right corner, we see that there's a thing that says mass lock, the landing gear, and cargo scoop. None of those are checked in, but if I drop my landing gear, you see that's checked in. I won't be able to use my frame drive when my landing gear is out. So that is important to remember. Mass locked is if you're too close to something that has mass, then you won't be able to jump. So you basically need to get away from planets or stations or things like that, and you won't be able to jump. Now also, if we check out my main HUD, the main radar, to the left and slightly above, you'll see a small circle with like a blue dot and crosshairs, and I want to put that dot into the crosshairs there, and we can also see in front of us the circle of where we want to jump. That's basically telling us this is where we want to jump to. So now that I've met the checklist, I'm going to go ahead and initiate my jump. So I don't have anything holding me back. I'm lined up with where I want to go, and I'm going to tell that I want the flame shift charge to go ahead and take me to that system. Now, big thing to remember, it's going to take me right to the star of that system. So when I get into that system, I'm immediately going to want to either slow down or turn or whatever, so that I don't go crashing into that star and get destroyed, which can happen. So you don't have to do anything here. This part is automatic. This is the jumping from system to system is actually the easier jump because you're jumping to a nav point and whatever. So here we go. Now we can see that star right away, and then we're going to pull up a little bit. And now we want to, so we did discover a new object. So I'm going to scan here because maybe this system isn't really that developed yet, and just see if we find any other objects. And we can talk about scanning and exploring later. So right now, even though we have jumped into this new system, we are still in what's called Super Cruise. And this is when we jump from system to system. We're going to go ahead and jump right to one of the points that we need to complete this mission. So if I go into here and I check this out, so here's where I'm at, and then there'll be a little marker next to the places where I have to complete a mission. So I can go ahead and check out my contacts real quick. If I want to, excuse me, transactions here. So I need to deliver to George Terminal Outpost, and I need to deliver to George Terminal Outpost. Great. So that is simple enough that everything is in the same place. But as I look around here, I'm not seeing George Terminal Outpost yet, so I might need to keep exploring this system a little bit. Now, one thing that is nice is there are certain things like basically new things that'll pop up. If you're in Super Cruise and checking this out, it might say new contact or whatever, and there'll be special areas that you can go check out. And actually, I'm a dum-dum. I'm not in the system I want to go to yet. I need to make another jump. Actually, 2 more jumps, I believe, to get to the system. But it's a good thing I went in here because I can show this off and show you that sometimes while you're just traveling around in Super Cruise, you will have other things pop up. So, but this is the place I want to go to Turd. What? Yeah, anyways, and this is already locked, so I'm going to go ahead and jump out of here and then line up those blue dots again, just like before. Now, so here I am in the Super Cruise, and if I was in the system I wanted to be in, then I would go ahead and check out where I want to go to. But since we're not, we do have to make 2 more jumps. So I'm going to go ahead and cut out until we get to the system that we want to. But like I said, it was good that I at least showed off that, yeah, you can find these special things that show up, new contacts or whatever, in your map while you're in Super Cruise. So let's go ahead and jump. Oh, and another thing, you notice also above my fuel, or by my fuel over in the bottom right, it's saying how much fuel this jump is going to take. So you do want to bear that in mind too, that you don't want to run out of fuel. So if you're, there we go, you do have to be at full throttle to do that as well. So if you're jumping to places, you want to be sure you're going to be able to refuel somewhere, or you have a fuel scoop with which to do that. So we're going to go ahead and make our jumps here to get to the system we want to, and then find the place we want to go to, and then show you how we use Super Cruise in order to get to the place we want to go to after we make sure we don't hit this star. Okay, great. So we discovered another new object. That's nice. So more stuff that we'll be able to sell later. We'll do a quick scan just in case to see 8 new astronomical objects. There we go. So that's pretty awesome, and we'll be able to sell that information in a system as long as we're at least 20 light years away. So we could continue to hang out in the system. If we go into the system map, it'll show us that we have, this is basically what we found in this area so far. But because I have the basic scanner, we really didn't uncover the whole thing. There's a lot of stuff we could still uncover, so I could keep flying around, keep trying to uncover. If I had a better scanner, I'd be able to scan a wider distance. So that's the basics of how discovering are. And then there's more in-depth things about exploring or whatever. That's more advanced stuff. We just want to talk about the basic stuff here. So we're all set. We're going to go ahead and jump now to the system that we actually want to do our missions at. Maybe I won't go ahead and put a cut in it because I'm just talking this whole time. And we see there's a little bit less fuel we're using for this jump. We're still fine as far as fuel goes. Hopefully we'll be able to recharge in the system. And we do have a fuel scoop that we can use basically by flying close to a sun. You don't actually have to, a big thing you want to remember if you're using a fuel scoop to refuel, you don't actually have to be flying. You can actually find a spot where you're just a good distance from the sun that maybe when your heat and refueling gauge shows up, your heat's maybe around 60-70%, not so much it's going to damage you, and you can just sit still there and collect fuel basically. So that's kind of nice. So let's go ahead and not hit this sun. So I'm going to slow down a little bit now that I got to this system, and I'll explain why. So it looks like this is another new system as well, but I want to go ahead and scan real quick. 4 new objects, awesome, and then bring this up. So now the place that I want to go to should be highlighted. There we go. George Terminal. Let's lock destination. This is the place that we want to head to, and hopefully it won't be too far away. So again, we're going to line up those blue dots. There we go. And then now we're still in Super Cruise, so we're good to go. If you're within a system, same thing. You can line up the dot and then just jump into Super Cruise, and you'll be flying around at this kind of like hyperspace looking thing. Now, when you're jumping within a system, though, you have to control your flight manually, and sometimes you might need to avoid objects or things like that, or get too close to an object. So we see as we are approaching this object, we are going too fast, and that's actually good. I'm going to pretend we did that on purpose. The reason I'm saying that is because I didn't get a chance to talk about the distance and speed meters over on the bottom left. You need to be careful about your speed when you're jumping to a system, and basically, just like when you're flying around and the blue line is going to show you your ideal speed to be able to maneuver while in combat, that blue line is going to show you kind of an ideal speed when you're jumping within a system, because we actually need to pull out of our jump when we get close enough to the system, but we can't be going too fast. It's naturally going to go up or down based on how far away we are, and how we'll gradually pick up speed while in Super Cruise. But we can see here's an example here. We're getting closer and closer to the system. You can see that distance coming in. We want to pull out of Super Cruise when we get to those blue lines, and now we are in a safe speed that we can jump out because we're within the blue lines of the speed as well. So the timing of this actually worked out pretty well. So we're going to go ahead, keep flying in here. We do have to maneuver in this version of Super Cruise, and I'm going to hang on just for a second here, maybe get a little bit closer to the system before we disengage, and there. Now we'll disengage. So here we are at George Terminal, and we'll go ahead and jump into docking. So how far are we away from George Terminal? So let's go ahead. We're 8 kilometers. Okay, we're going to speed up a little bit, and I'm going to go back into this here, and I'm going to go to contacts. The reason I'm going to go to contacts is in order to land, I have to request docking. Now, there we go. Request granted. You do need to be within, I believe, 7 clicks or whatever you want to call it in order to land. So now we have the ability to land, and you do again want to request access. And before I forget, I'm going to go ahead and plop down my landing gear now because that's important. So let's see here, landing gear deployed, and we do need to find the actual entrance to this place in order to... Oh, this place is not a place where we have to enter. There are 2 different types of ways to dock in this game. There is the... where you're coming into a station and it kind of has a gap in order to pull into. Pay attention when you're doing that, and the station spins while you're doing that as well, which makes it trickier. Those are the trickier ways to land. If you are landing in a place like this, it's a little bit easier because you don't have to pull into a place like that. Pay attention to green and red lights. There are 2 paths. You want to stay on the side with the green light. That's the direction of you know, where you're traveling. So we're going to go ahead and pull in here, and we're going to see a little miniature thing. There we go. Our HUD is going to change quite a bit. And now that our HUD has changed, we're going to see a few things. We're going to see a direction we want to be facing with those red arrows, and we're going to see where we want to line up on those crosshairs as far as how forward and how back we are. And then we'll go ahead and thrust down to land. There we go. Now, the first time you do that, it's going to take a lot longer and be a lot trickier. There are people who are super fast at it. That wasn't very fast, but there are people who are great. But you'll get the hang of it, the direction you want to face. And you got to remember, there are like side and up and down thrusters as well. Not like using yaw, but actually pushing your ship side to side and going down. So that's what we're going to want to do to land there. So now that we're at George Terminal, we can check out the different things that we have here. We can refuel. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. It's not very expensive, and I haven't really used my fuel scoop all that much. We can repair the little bit of damage we have, but what we do want to do is go to the mission board. And why do we want to do that? Because we want to hand in mission, boom data delivery. So we'll go ahead and get our reward for this. Nice, wonderful. Great. There are lots of things in these systems that we want to check out. We could check out the mission board itself to try to look for missions. In general, you know, you're going to have things like, oh, here we go, claim reward. There we go. Now we've actually got both of those too. So it was nice that, and the reason I did that delivery is because we were able to get two to the same system, and it wasn't all that far away. But you can check out each different person, missions that are available, and missions that you don't meet the requirements for. Maybe you can change your ships, meet the requirements or whatever. Missions aren't necessarily the best way to make money. There are some really high value missions later, but the early missions aren't necessarily that great, it seems. I don't know too much about the missions. I haven't done too many of them. There's the passenger lounge where you can pick up passengers if we have the capability to do that on a ship. All this is more advanced stuff we're not going to get too much into here. But let's look at our contacts. There we go. This is what I was looking for. In this section, we can turn in our bounties. So we're going to go ahead and I actually don't know why those are at minus 25%. So again, not an expert at the game, but we're going to go ahead and redeem all of our stuff here, because if you die before you redeem this stuff, you don't get the money for it. The universal cartographers, that's where we hand in the data of the systems that we've uncovered. So here, all these things are in red because we're within 20 light years of the system with which we uncovered that data. And we just uncovered some of this data recently. So we can see the value of it. So this one actually is a pretty decent value. I mean, you'll get more later when you have better scanners and can do more interesting stuff. But there's kind of a quick look at what you want to do with that. So we are going to go to a different system or a different place eventually where we can actually upgrade our ship, but that'll give us the basics of that part of the landing and then what sort of stuff that you will see there. So we handed in those missions, so now let's go try to get into some combat. Alright, so now we're going to check out some combat. So I went to a nav beacon, and there are many places you can get in combat, but a nav beacon I think is good for new players. And you can scan different ships, you just select them and keep them in front of you, and this ship shows as wanted. So that's great, because that's what we want to find. And if we take out a wanted ship, we'll be able to collect a bounty on it. Now, some ships are going to have, or actually, you are also able to use kill warrant scanners. I don't have one on my ship right now, but what a kill warrant scanner does is it lets you check for bounties not only on the ship that you or not only for the type of system that you're in, but also for any other systems that this person may have bounties in. So it is nice to have. You want to keep the ship in front of you and then use that. You put it on one of your weapons groups as like the secondary weapon or primary weapon or whatever to one of your non-combat weapons groups, and then it will let you collect all the warrants all the bounties that person may have. Now, when I'm in combat in general, I want to keep my throttle in that blue area. That blue area is showing me kind of the ideal place for me to have both, you know, the most maneuverability. Now that he's getting away a little bit, I'm going to speed up a little bit. Now you can also change the settings. Now I can put power into, if you look at systems, engines, and weapons, I can change all those things around. And the reason I want to do that, systems will help give me better shields. I don't think, there we go, and we got 30,000 credits, nice. I don't think it helps my shields generate faster, but it gives me stronger shields, I think. And then I can just go back to the basic settings. Engines help me not only move faster, but maneuver faster as well. And then weapons give me more power into the weapons. As I use my weapons, you'll see that bar deplete. And in order to get that to recharge faster, I'm going to want to do that. Now, you see the ship that I have targeted has a bracket around it. When there's a line coming down, that means he's above me. If there's a line coming up, that means he's below me. So here's an example of me checking out, so this ship is clean. Again, if I had a kill warrant scanner, I could be checking out these ships, seeing, you know, even especially if they're wanted, if they have warrants in other systems that I may be able to collect. But in general, you can hang out by a place, wait for ships to come in, look for people who have warrants. You know, kill warrant scanner is probably a good idea. I just don't have one right now, and it should give you a decent idea about the combat. As far as what sort of, you know, what you want your system set to, you know, that will depend on the situation. You'll want to change that up. You know, engines and weapons are nice, but if you're taking hits, you know, obviously having stuff in your systems is nice too. So right now I think we've scanned all the ships nearby and they're all clean, so we're gonna have to wait for some more to come in. You want to be careful not to hit other ships as well, because you can get a bounty on you, but that can give you an idea of some of the combat. Now, The thing is you want to remember different weapons or different things. So you can have ships where you have two different types of weapons. One set to primary and one set to secondary. Maybe one like a thermal weapon that's good on taking out shields, and then a kinetic weapon that's good at taking out the hull. You can fire them both at the same time as well when you do that. But those are all things that you want to keep in mind. So another thing you want to keep in mind is if I scan through here, Elite, Dangerous, where we get the game, Expert, Elite, those ratings matter and the type of ship matters. So that's a Viper, and if I remember correctly, Vipers are pretty good ships. But you'll get to know the ships and you know what's more powerful and whatnot. Here's an Eagle. That's a ship I'm in. It is kind of a combat ship, but it is a early game ship, so they're not so powerful. You want to bear that in mind because the master and all that, oh, and this person is wanted as well. They tell you how dangerous that ship is as well. Elite is the highest rank, I believe, then Deadly, then Dangerous, I believe, then I think Master, and then other lower ranks, Expert, so on and so forth. You want to bear that in mind. If you're going up against a ship that's better than yours and the person's Elite, you might not want to do that. There are other ships that may take in combat as well, so maybe you decide that it's worth it. So let's go ahead and fly in a little bit closer. We'll speed up, and then we'll take our speed back down a little bit. Let's pump everything into weapons for now and take this guy out. But those are other things you want to keep in mind, the ranks of that sort of thing, and the type of ship, and then the kill warrant scanner as well. Now we are using gibbled weapons that do track the person as well. Now I do actually want to get a setup where I have so I have taken a little bit of damage. I guess I was under attack, but I do want to get weapons where I have kinetic weapons and thermal weapons as well. But because I put everything, and again, I can put some power in engines or whatever, because I'm not really taking attacks. I'm putting everything into weapons so that recharges rather quickly. So this guy is almost done. Let's speed up a little bit. We'll even boost to get in a little bit closer to finish this guy off. Let's see here. Now we gotta slow down to be more maneuverable, though. You see that red ring around the opponent. Did he leave the system? Where did he go? Oh, did he get out of the system? That is a bummer. So he's gone, huh? Well, that's a bummer. I'm super bummed about that. Okay, that's what I get for trying to talk. It probably did tell me that he was trying to jump. But those are all things you want to keep in mind. So, like, this ship has those 3 rings around it. Those are its shields. And then that red ring starts showing up when someone is recharging their shield. So that is important to keep in mind. Then their shields will come, when it does recharge fully, they'll completely come back up, is how the shields work in the game. So that is something else to keep in mind. So that should help you out a little bit. Again, you can set things in different fire groups. In general, you're going to want to have a combat fire group and then other fire groups for doing other things, maybe with your scanners and stuff like that. You probably may eventually want some different types of weapons and things like that, and we're eventually going to go to a station and check that out. But those are the big things you want to know about combat: how the radar works, what you're looking for, what the different ranks are, and the kill warrant scanner. There's a lot of stuff to bear in mind and the different ways. So let's go back to a balance setting real quick here, and we could go up in the engines, whatever, which again gives us more maneuverability as well. But that should give you a pretty good idea of what you need to know for the basics of combat. And then now that we have some bounties or whatever, we can go ahead and turn those in. Actually, here we go. Here's an example of me doing some fuel scooping. Now I got a little bit too close to the sun. I'm getting up a little bit high, so I'm going to start moving away from this sun a little bit. There are only certain types of stars that you can scoop from. So now that I'm getting pretty high, I'm going to start pulling away a little bit. But basically, you can find a spot and sit for a little while. It's around like the 60-some percentile for a bit. And, oh, now we're flying in too close. But you can just sit in a spot and collect fuel. So that's what we kind of did. We moved in a little bit closer to collect a little bit faster. The closer you are, the faster you'll collect fuel. But obviously, the quicker you'll overheat. So you don't want that heat to get too high. So there's a little example of fuel scooping. I'd made several jumps or whatever. Now, another thing that I do want to throw out there that you have to keep in mind when you are trying to fuel scoop from a star is that there are only certain stars that you were able to do that at, and A, B, F, G, K, M, O. So an easy way to remember which stars you can, types of stars you can fuel scoop at, is KGB foam. A little thing to bear in mind. That's something else that you may be wondering, why can't I fuel scoop as a new player? That's why, because there are only certain stars you can do it, and then you can just hang out nearby, and now we're all fueled up and set to go. We were about halfway, and now I don't need to worry about stopping at a station in order to refuel, and I can go ahead and jump to my next station. So I thought that might be a little helpful for you, and then we'll actually get to a station and check out modifying the ship. Hey everybody, we're going to talk about modifying the ship in just a second here, but I did want to point out, when you're doing scanning, first of all, when you get enough money, it is nice to be able to go up to like an intermediate or advanced discovery scanner. If you look here, we have a range of 500 and a passive range of 0.33, and then as we move up to this, it's super expensive, and then up to this, it's way more expensive, but it basically scans the whole system for undiscovered objects and a huge passive range. But basically how scanners work is you use them in order to scan the area to find undiscovered objects, and also passively discover objects that you're close to. But you do want to bear in mind, if you're trying to get money for discovering objects, I didn't realize this until just very, very recently, you don't really get the money just by scanning and then finding undiscovered objects. You actually need to target those objects, which will then like scan the objects as you're targeting them in order to get them to count, and then they'll show up in your thing as, you know, you've discovered these things in this area, and then if you're at least 20 light years away, you can then sell that information, which is very useful. But what I do want to do real quick though is let us head back here, and there's something else I wanted to point out. We're not going to take a look at the different ships, because I'm not at a place that will let me buy ships right now, and I do want to finish making this video. But as far as, you know, we'll talk about that. As far as what ship is concerned, you know, you can figure that out based on what you want to do. But one thing I do want to look at is in our ship over here. Okay. There's my balance. I have 285,000 credits and a rebuy cost of 13,000 and whatever. So the reason that is super, super important is when you start the game, you have like 1,000 credits and a Sidewinder ship. If at any point you die and you have less money than your rebuy cost, which is a percentage based on the value of your ship and the equipment you have added to your ship. So even though you start off in a Sidewinder, if you upgrade everything in your Sidewinder to quite a bit, it will actually be a fairly expensive ship, and will have a fairly high rebuy cost. So based on that, whenever you die, you need to be able to pay that cost. It's basically your insurance policy to get your old build back, or you start back in a Sidewinder with nothing special and 1,000 credits. So super bear that in mind. Don't buy a ship unless you're willing to, you know, don't fly something unless you're willing to lose it. Eventually, later in the game, if you play all kinds of hours, you know, there are people who just have billions and billions of credits and, you know, many, many ships. But earlier on, you know, and if you're not going to play that much of the game, you want to bear that in mind, that you don't want to ever have less credits in the bank than you have the rebuy cost of your ship. And if you get in that situation, try to do some safe missions, deliver some things, stay out of combat until you get enough money that you can go into combat. So that's why the bounty hunting, you know, it may be nice, but, you know, you're also going to potentially get blown up, and dangerous missions, you know, are going to be worth more money because there is some risk reward to that. But I thought I would point out that rebuy cost, because that is a super important thing to know early on in the game. When you upgrade your ship, make sure you have enough money to rebuy that ship before you go into a place where you might lose it. Alright, last but not least, we're going to talk about outfitting. Now, some places actually will have spacecraft you can buy. I'm not at a place like that yet. What spacecraft you buy, I'm not going to get into it right now, just because there's a lot of different stuff. Basically, ships are going to be potentially better at hauling stuff, like if you're going to do trade, exploring, and all that is stuff you're going to want to decide after you decide what you want to do, and you can look up that information as to what ship will be best for you. Whereas my Eagle here is kind of like the step above the beginning Sidewinder and kind of based around a combat ship. So let's check out our hard points here. So we have 3 hard points, and like I was saying, you know, they will show you where the different ones are. Let's take a look at some of the different things that are available. So thermal and kinetic weapons are the big thing. Then you have explosive weapons. You can have all different kinds of stuff here. So burst lasers are what we have. There are lasers that do continuous fire, pulse lasers, all different kinds of things. Mining lasers, which you need if you want to do mining. So, but I think what I want to do right now is maybe replace one of the guns that I have, or one of the lasers I have, with some sort of cannon or multi-cannon. So whenever we look at something, it will show us basically the stats. Now these things go, A is basically the best, so they're going to be the most expensive. Now there's like a chart and everything that will show you what different things tend to be good at. One of them tends to be the lightest and whatnot. In general, something ranked A is going to be the most powerful, maybe have the most power drain, whatever, but there are differences. Maybe if you're not super interested in combat and you want to be lightweight, jump great distances, you want the lightweight stuff, and that's a certain letter. I don't remember which one it is. And again, it's stuff you can all look up, but in general, the closer to A the letter is, the better that thing is. And then we can take a look at, you know, the cost, and then it will give us this nice thing over here that'll show us pluses or minuses based on what the weapons are compared to what we currently have. Now another great thing it'll show us at the bottom is the power drain our ship will have, both when the, you know, when our hard points are out and then when they're retracted. So that's super important because that line is also there that shows us, you know, what our maximum power is, and if we exceed that, based on our priorities, certain things will basically stop working in our ship. So that's why we need fire groups and things like that, and we'll get into that in a moment. So one of the things that I want to actually talk about first is, let's go back here and we'll actually get into kind of the core internal components. So there's lots of stuff here. Life support is how much air you'll have if you take some structural damage and your life support goes out before you get back to a base. There's all different kinds of things, you know, sensors, fuel tanks, and all kinds of crazy stuff. We're not going to get into all of them. Thrusters, or, you know, when you boost, can help you get in range in combat, or also to escape enemies. And again, the better ones that you have, the more expensive they're going to be, the more they're going to drain on power. And there are different aspects to each of the letters as well. But some of the things that are super important are the power plant. So the power plant basically is what gives us, so if we go to this one, you know, we'll see we'll be able to get more power and better heat efficiency, because if we run out of power based on the things we put into our ship, then, you know, things will go out and things won't be able to function well. So upgrading your power plant can be important, especially when your lines start getting close to that end line. But something else that can be super important is a power distributor. See, we started with a lot of E-level things, and you can see I've upgraded some of these things, like my power distributor, because different power distributors, as you can see, they will help you with all kinds of stuff. So for example, if we go to this 1A, we can, well actually, some of that stuff seems to be lowered, interestingly enough. Here we go. So a 2A, it will increase our weapons capacity, recharge time, all this different stuff. Power distributors are super important, but again, the more powerful the power distributor is, actually the more drain on your power. So those are things that, you know, your power distributor is super important. Yeah, it'd be nice to upgrade your weapons, but maybe even before you upgrade your weapons, you want to make sure you have enough power to do it, and a good power distributor helps, gives you better weapons, better shield recharge, all that stuff. These are things that are super important. There are other things, and a lot of them are self-explanatory as to what they do, but I thought I'd point those out in particular because they can be pretty important. And then we can swap around. Here we have cargo racks. Here's our basic discovery scanner that we use to, you know, discover things. We have a fuel scoop on this. This can approach planets, and actually, you know what, we... Okay, yeah, maybe that's something that is kind of automatically in the thing. But there are, here's our shield generator, and, you know, we can get better ones of that. But these are also, things that we can swap around a little bit too. Maybe we want to have lots of cargo, so we don't have some other things. We're not interested in scanning or whatever. Maybe we want to have no cargo and have some some other things that'll help us with whatever we want to do. So another major thing though are these utility mounts. Now a lot of ships are going to have more than one of these, but if we go into the shop, we're going to see, and actually this place in particular doesn't have as many things as some other places. Heat sink launchers that'll help us if we're getting too heavy or too hot, that we can launch a mount. Wake scan, all these different things. Now this is where we would put a kill warrant scanner that we've talked about before, but and you can check into these. There's things that you can launch, chaff, whatever. These are also going to be super important. Some ships have more than one of these. Actually, I think your starting ship has more than one of these. Now I have something that boosts my shields because I'm doing basic focusing on combat, but there's all different things based on what you're doing with your ship. They're going to be important. There are things like refineries that if you want to do mining, you need to not only have a place to store the mining stuff, but then to put it into refineries to turn it into things that you can turn in. And there are tutorials into that as well that you can find that focus on that specifically. But we're not going to talk about everything. We can't cover everything in one video. And you go to some places that are more well stocked, and there's tons of different options here. But again, you want to look at all of these different things: your internal components, your optional internal, your utility mounts, and figure out what is going to work with what you want to do with the ship. And I have a very combat focused ship, so I have a shield generator on there as well. But I do like that it shows you. So here's my two bottom ones. So for my top one, I do think I am going to go with a kinetic weapon. Let's see, I'm going to look at the multi-cannon here. Now, both of these here, they are gimbaled. I'm trying to figure out, oh, wait a minute, this is a pulse laser. Okay, that's what I have installed, sorry. But this, you notice here, it says gimbaled here. Some weapons are, some weapons aren't. You'll notice ones that aren't gimbaled, they tend to be more powerful for less money. So why do you want the gimbaled ones? Well, if you're like me and starting out and you haven't played a lot of modern flight games with the modern controls, I mean, back when I played like X-Wing and TIE Fighter Net, the controls were totally different. Basically, if you went a direction you turned that way, you didn't have to worry so much about pitch and yaw and all that stuff. In these games that are more modern, it's been a while since I've played, and gimbaled weapons basically have a little bit of tracking. If you have your targeting near an enemy, like you saw when we were playing, the little dots on the screen that represent my weapons, they were moving around tracking the enemy. Now if the enemy gets too far away from the center of my focus, they won't follow the enemy, obviously. Then you need to be targeting close to the enemy. Non-gimbaled weapons are fixed weapons. Again, they tend to be more powerful for a better value, but they're fixed weapons. They won't have that little bit of tracking on your opponent. They will just stay in one spot, so you need to be more accurate with that. So that's another important thing to think about. So let's see here. I'm thinking about go ahead and picking these up so that we have this in order to do more damage to a ship after the shields are down. And I'm going to show you, and at this point there's something else that is kind of nice. So we can store what we already have here, or we can exchange to get a discount on it. So I'm going to go ahead and do this and exchange. One nice thing about any sort of components in your ship is you always get full value when you sell them back, so you don't have to worry about that. However, when you trade in a ship to get a new one or sell a ship, there is I believe a 10% loss on the ship. So it's not a bad idea to maybe keep some other components, base components around, put the base components back into the ship, and then you sell it or whatever, and store some of those components, because you will technically lose like 10% of value on the extra stuff you added to the ship when you sell it. But if you're just selling components, trading components on their own, it's great because you get full value. And if you want to try out components to see if you like them or not, you don't have to worry about spending that money or losing that money. So that is a big thing to keep in mind. So now that we have that, let's go back and actually get into our ship again, and we want to bring up yeah, right here. So there are two different, well, actually 4 different things you can look at in your ship, but the main ones you're going to be looking at is this, that, we can look at the, and something else I didn't show you in combat. You can actually target specific things on ships, and this will make more sense now that you've seen this. You can target like the ship's drives in order to potentially get them dead in space. There are certain things you can target, like the power plant, that maybe, because if that is completely destroyed, the ship will blow up even if it doesn't go down to 0 health, which is kind of a neat thing, but it will show you a little target for basically what you're aiming for. So if you're not actually hitting that component, you're not doing damage to that component specifically, but you can target specific components on ships. But instead we're going to go over to here. So this shows us, I really like mostly harmless. That's kind of nice Douglas Adam reference there. And it's showing us our different ranks in the different components. But what we're interested in, first of all, the modules here. This is what I was talking about. If you go over your power allowance, the priority that you set to these modules will determine what goes out first. So, for example, number 1 priorities, they will always try to keep them on. But if you go over your power rating, or you have some damage to your power or whatever, then the things that have the highest number will go out first to keep the other things on. So that's something kind of important to keep in mind. I haven't really played around with it at all yet, but that is something important. If you're going to overdo your power, what sort of things do you want to prioritize? Or again, if you take damage to your power or whatever, what sort of things will be prioritized? But we do want to look at, in particular, is fire groups. And fire groups is a way to help not have you go over power. So what we have here, we have all of our weapons right now are set to our primary fire, and then our basic discovery scanner is set to our secondary fire. Now I'm going to change this up here. So I'm going to set my multi-cannon to my secondary fire. I'm going to turn this off. And now I'm going to go over and make a new fire group. So basically the way this works is, and what I've seen suggested is you want to have like a combat setting. So the weapons you want to use in combat, you want to set to 1 and 2. You only have a primary and secondary fire. You don't have like a tertiary thing that you can use. So maybe 2 different types of weapons set to that, and then maybe another group, like for example, if you're an explorer and you have different things set to that, or you have mining lasers or whatever. And you could just be someone who mines and doesn't have any combat weapons and not focus on that if you want to in the game. But in general, you want to set it so that your combat stuff is on 1, your other scanners and things like that are set to something else, so that, for example, if I have a kill warrant scanner, I probably want to set that maybe to my secondary over in my second fire group, so that I can use my discovery scanner and my kill warrant scanner. But I'm never going to accidentally fire a weapon and a scanner at the same time, because again, if I target someone and I'm trying to scan them and I accidentally fire on them, maybe they're actually innocent, So you want to, this is how the fire groups work, and you can change them while you're flying around, and it's pretty easy to know which ones you have up. So this is a pretty good, I don't have a lot of things here to show you an example of how this works because I'm combat focused, but when you have different things, different scanners, set those to one thing, and you might have, maybe 3 different things. There are certain things that you can use while you're in the, not the hyperdrive, whatever they call it, super cruise or whatever, that you can't use otherwise. But again, basically you have a 1 and 2 setting. You can set multiple things to the same setting, but bear in mind they will all fire at the same time, which is fine for weapons, but maybe not for other things. And again, now with this setup, I can maybe use my pulse laser to take down shields, my multi-cannon to attack the ship, or fire all 3 at the same time. But that gives me a little bit more diversity, and then I can switch to my other fire group if I want to scan. So that should give you a pretty good idea of some of the basics of the game, things that may not be all that well explained to you initially, and some things that would have helped me starting the game. Hopefully you guys found this informative. Maybe this is a game you're interested in, and if you are interested, let me know. Give it a thumbs up, maybe subscribe if you're interested, and maybe I'll do some more content, maybe a vlog, a diary of what's gone on in the game so far, because I haven't really talked about the game itself all that much. But if this is a game you're interested in checking out, hopefully this will help you be able to do that and not have such a high of a learning curve in the game. So thanks a lot for watching, everyone, and we will talk to you again soon.